I've said this, and we could all go on, but the person who wants to go on now, because we need her to do this, I can't, is Katrina vanden Heuvel, who for a great many years has been one of the great voices and consciences of, dare I say liberal when we're all progressives now, but a stand-up liberal. She would even dare to tell you she is on the left. Katrina vanden Heuvel.
A stand-up liberal. I want to thank Norman Lear, because in these times of savagery, of peril, you give us courage, and we're gathered here tonight because of the People for the American Way, founded 30 years ago, and its remarkable defense of our Constitution, and for all of that, and for your commitment to the bedrock values of this country. I'm going to be brief. You all know why we're here. We're here to talk about how we defend free speech, how we fight censorship in these times when, as Norman spoke of, you have the fusion of a religious right and a newly empowered right wing in this Congress. This is not new. We have seen the history of these culture wars and the wedge issues the right has tried to inflict on our country. An issue like arts censorship speaks to who we are as a nation, who we are as a country, how we make our decisions, why we ostracize certain groups, and these censorship efforts in so many instances have focused on the gay community, on erasing the voices of gay artists, along with promoting this idea that American values were defined exclusively by the values of fundamentalist Christianity. It's that kind of suffocating narrowing of our government's values, our country's values, that's coming back. It's a recurring cycle of reform and reaction and reform, and we are here to stand up and argue in intelligent ways. In these last weeks, you may have followed, I was talking to Michael Keegan, I think there's a galvanizing of different forces and groups and communities in this country beginning to understand that tonight we're talking about censorship-free expression in the Smithsonian exhibit, but that there is an attempt in many ways to roll back the civilizing advances of this country. I've been following what's going on in Maine. I don't know if you followed it, where the governor of Maine ordered the removal of a mural by a Maine artist because he claimed it was too pro-labor and anti-business. And so we're seeing a repeal of the attempt to repeal the 20th century. And the exhibit we're going to talk about is one that those like Boehner, John Boehner and Eric Cantor, I don't think they even saw. They have tried to remove taxpayer money from a museum that is at the heart of this country's capital. I wanted to just end before introducing the terrific panel, but I recommend to you, if you haven't read it, People For's report of last year called The New McCarthyism. Talking about what comes and goes, it's a moment when we need to retrieve not only what is great in our country's history, but to remember the lessons. And we are looking again at a type of demagoguery that hinges on the idea that America and all it stands for is being destroyed by enemies within. So this new McCarthyism has a new foothold in this new Congress, and it's in full display in the paranoid tirades of Glenn Beck, wherever he may alight and land, and the obscene and widespread view now promulgated by Donald Trump, who I gather is now tied with Sarah Palin for front runner in the Republican Party, that President Obama is an un-American imposter. The House GOP's fit over art in the Smithsonian was a small but powerful example of this dynamic in action. You will hear more tonight, and I'm going to turn this over now to some of the experts. And let me introduce the panel to you and ask each panelist to speak for about 5 minutes. And then we'll have questions an engagement between the panelists and have questions from the audience. You should have index cards on your seat, and good people will be coming around, not to take down your names, to take your cards. First, I'd like to introduce Blake Gopnik. I'm sure all of you know him. He is the special correspondent for art and design at Newsweek and the Daily Beast. And Blake was, until recently, the chief art critic at the Washington Post, where he was one of the first journalists to cover the uproar over the hide-seek exhibit, and one of the first to speak out against the Smithsonian's decision to remove David Wojnarowicz's work from it. A. Bronson is an acclaimed artist whose work was literally at the center of the Smithsonian's show, and who himself was at the center of the debate over the Smithsonian censorship. And Mr. Bronson added a powerful voice to the debate over hide-seek when he requested that the National Gallery remove his work, Felix, June 5, 1994, from the show. He currently serves as artistic director of the Institute for Art, Religion, and Social Justice at Union Theological Seminary in New York City. To give John Boehner and the Catholic League's Bill Donahue some credit, they didn't actually press criminal charges, not yet, against anyone involved in the hide-seek exhibit. Dennis Berry had a different experience in 1990 when he was directing a museum that hosted an exhibit of Robert Mapplethorpe's works in Cincinnati. He will tell you about that experience. I want to tell you about the happy ending, which is that Dennis is not in jail for obscenity charges, and that he went on to have a very successful career in the museum world. We were talking about this earlier, he may address this, serving as the founding director of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and now is the creative director of Las Vegas's Museum of Organized Crime and Law Enforcement. There's a story in there, an article. I want a profile. Finally, Michael Keegan. Many of you know, Michael's voice was one of the loudest out there from the beginning of the Smithsonian debate, besides, I suppose, Bill Donahue's. Michael and People for the American Way defended the hide-seek exhibit, have been at the forefront of that defense, and called on Smithsonian Secretary Wayne Clough to resign after it became clear that he was the institutional force behind the censorship. People For was also active in the free expression debates of the 1990s, which I hope Michael will talk a little bit about.